All right, good morning, everyone. I call this Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization Technical Advisory Committee meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, April 11th. It is 9:02 a.m. First on the agenda is welcome, everyone, and introductions. And I would like to take a minute to introduce Sarah Rhodes with VDOT. Sarah, do you have a moment?
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, that's exciting because I wasn't sure if that was going to work. Good morning, everybody. I am Sarah Rhodes. I'm the new Assistant District Planner with Richmond District. I worked at the Richmond TPO for 4 years. So I am glad to be back working with many of you again. I'm also having weird TAC anxiety because the last time I was doing TAC, I was preparing to present to it. But now as a member, it's going to take some time to get used to that. But I'm glad to be back working with all of you. Please reach out. I'll be doing mostly smart scale items, but a lot of things related to the smart portal. And I will be the new TAC representative for VDOT moving forward.
Thank you, Sarah. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Your new role. All right, so number 2 on the agenda is roll call and certification of a quorum. Ms. Firestone, would you please proceed?
Yes, ma'am. Give me just 1 minute. We have 3 other attendees who have just arrived, and I'm moving them over now. Okay. Town of Ashland, Ms. Amos. Charles City County, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Russell. Chesterfield County, Ms. Smith.
Here.
Ms. Walker.
Here.
Goochland County, Mr. Goyne.
Here.
Mr. Coleman. Hanover County, Mr. Vidunez.
Here.
Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Chair Smidler.
Here.
New Kent County, Henrico County, Mr. Yor. And then New Kent County, Ms. Inman.
Here.
Ms. LeDuc. Powhatan County, Mr. Shardine. City of Richmond, Ms. Clark.
Here.
Capital Region Airport Commission, Mr. Rutledge. RRTPO Ms. Dubinsky. Mr. Wagner. GRTC, Ms. Sink. Mr. Robinson. Ms. Robinson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
Mr. Ariel.
Here.
Ride Finders, Ms. Tisdale. Mr. O'Keefe.
Here.
RMTA, Ms. Simmons. VDOT, Ms. Rhodes.
Here.
Ms. Mueller.
I'm here.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance, and we do have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is consideration of amendments to the meeting agenda. And Chet, go ahead, Mr. Parsons, your hand's raised.
Thank you. Staff would like to add one item to the agenda, and I thought the staff report was distributed, but we can send it out now. It is to do a administrative update to the existing FY23 work program to make sure that funds are adequately distributed for the program work tasks for the remainder of this year through June 30th.
I actually have posted the new item. I did not get it emailed out, but I can share my screen if you'd like me to put that up.
That would be helpful.
Okay. One second.
I see it now. If you go to the if members can go to the meetings page on the Plan RVA website, there's a link there. But at any point, Madam Chair, would like to add this as an action item. I would recommend as a new item 9.
Okay. Can we do a voice vote? Just all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Hearing none, we will add that to the new item 9. And thank you. Yes, Janice, you're fine to stop sharing your screen. I see it, as Chet mentioned, on the Plan RVA webpage under meetings. There's the agenda to the left, and on the right has the presentation. All right, next on the agenda, item 4 is approval of the March 14th, 2023 TAC meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Second?
Diarna. Second.
Thank you. And we can take a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed or abstain? All right, hearing none, sounds like that was approved. Item 5, open public comment period. I do not see anything in the chat or the Q&A. Mr. Parsons, did we receive anything before the meeting?
No, we did not.
Okay, thank you. Item 6 is the TAC chairman's report. I thought the transportation forum went well last month, very well put on, great job. I don't have anything else to report. Item 7, the RRTPO update. Would that be you, Mr. Parsons, or Mr. Ariel?
Yes, thank you. Not a whole lot to update in this agenda item, but I did want to share that CTAC met on March 16th, I believe, and the report is in the packet, I believe, on page 8. In addition to this report, the policy board, when they last met last week, discussed inviting CTAC to the an upcoming policy board meeting to discuss CTAC's role and how that might evolve moving forward. Lisa Guthrie is the chair, and she was present at the policy board meeting, so we are coordinating with Lisa, and I would assume other members of the committee to attend the next policy board meeting and have a fruitful discussion about the role of the CTAC and how they may better serve the organization.
Thank you. So that is it for the update. Okay. Item number 8 is socioeconomic data, 2050 future year data approval. This is an action item. Mr. Ariel, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the TAC. Let me first share my screen. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So you are all aware of the socioeconomic data, which we need to develop every 4 to 5 years. Last year, the TAC was asked to create a subgroup of the TAC for the socioeconomic data work group. Since then, we have met a couple of times over the past year, and the socioeconomic data work group approved the data last week. So I'm asking the TAC for the approval of the data today. So just to give you a little bit of background, the socioeconomic data provides estimates and population projections for population, employment, autos, K-12 school and colleges, as well as employment in the Richmond region within the small geographical areas called as TAZs. And then that is aggregated at the jurisdiction level, and then we aggregate that to the regional level. So HC data is one of the inputs for the regional travel demand model. So that's the main purpose of developing the socioeconomic data. Other than that, the data is used in various purposes. It's the only data in which we have the projections for the future in a small geography at the TAZ level. Like we have other proprietary data which projects population employment at the jurisdiction level, but no other data projects future projections to a small geography like TAZs. So it's used in various transportation studies, demographic studies. I think all the transportation, including transit studies, freight studies, use that data. It's used in locality comprehensive plan to look at how the data in comparison with the region, and has been used in many other purposes as well. But the main aim is to develop this data for the travel demand model. So the travel demand model is the major analytical tool which is used in the long range transportation plan. We use it extensively in Connect RV 2045, and we plan to use that in the 2050 long range transportation plan as well. The other thing which is going now is the scenario planning process for the Richmond region. The first time we are doing that. It's called the Pathways to the Future, and the RTC model and the underlying socioeconomic data are, again, a major analytical tool to be used in that scenario planning process. So the socioeconomic data, as I mentioned, is developed by a cooperative process in which the locality staff, VDOT, both district staff, as well as VDOT central office staff, DRPT, GRTC, as well as staff from Greater PDC developed this data. This group was established by the TAC. Some of the TAC members are in the group, but some of the other members, other locality staff are also in this group. So the basic methodology this time was just to develop the 2050 horizon year. So we previously had 2017 as the base year and 2050 as 2045 as the horizon year. So in every cycle, we try to update the base year as well. But this time around, due to COVID implications, 2020 and 2021 were very unreliable year, and 2022 could have been a reliable year, but the data wasn't there at that time. So we decided to use 2017, which is already approved by RRTPO Policy Board in 2019 as the base year, and develop the 2050 projections based on 2017, ignoring the COVID implications, mostly in employment, because that was the most affected by COVID, and also reviewing Census 2020 population numbers. The Census 2020 population was just released, and it is a snapshot of April 1st, 2020. COVID implications started around March 15. That's when the world was shut down. So I believe the population numbers didn't had much effect of COVID, but obviously the employment, school, and other factors were very much affected due to COVID. So we ignored 2017 and we ignored the recent data for employment and just developed the data based on 2017 data for employment. So it's a top-down approach for the future year data. We develop the jurisdictional total first, and then we distribute that to the TAZs. So TAZs are basically distributed based on current trends. It aligns with the locality comprehensive plan. We look at the pipeline projects. The population and employment are two independent projections. Other attributes, mostly schools, as well as colleges, not colleges, but schools and autos and housing units and household are directly direct derivatives of the population. So it wasn't independent projections, it depended on the population. But employment, though it had some connection with population, it was an independent projection. So here's the population for the region. For population, we have been establishing the Weldon-Cooper numbers as a baseline, and localities are given a leeway of 10% plus or minus than what Weldon-Cooper has projected for 2050. And in this round, most of the localities agreed upon what Weldon-Cooper has projected. The only exceptions were Charles City County, in which they added 10% because Weldon-Cooper had the projections decline over the next 30 years because the population had declined from census 2010 to 2020. So based on that, it was showing decline. So we got the maximum 10% added to it so that we have some, it's near the 2020 numbers now. Hanover County added 1.46% and Richmond added 3%. Other localities accepted what Weldon-Cooper was there. So overall, the difference for the region for Weldon-Cooper is only 0.74%. So that's very minimum. If you look at the total growth rate from 2017 to 2050, it's 34%. That's a good, significant growth rate. If you compare that to Hampton Roads, it's only 17%. And if you look at the annual growth rate, which is, this is not compounded, it's just linear annual growth rate, it's 1.04, pretty healthy. The second projection is employment projection. So for employment, last go round, we had developed a model which used the 2008, 2012, and 2017 employment data from VEC, which we had used for the previous rounds of socioeconomic data, and also looking at national, regional, and local trends. Based on our data and the methodology, which was developed by Sumara Economics, we had developed a model for 2045, and the same model was used to develop 2050 by staff. This is the baseline. We developed a baseline employment projection, and anything in the pipeline which would add 1,000+ jobs, we could add to that baseline. So basically, there were 3 projects: Legos in Chesterfield, CoStar in Richmond, and Rocky in Goochland. We added those projects to the baseline, and we established those numbers for the localities. And the localities were fine with that numbers. If you look at the growth rate, it's again 30% over the 33 years. Annual growth rate, again, not compounded, is 0.19%. So we have 2 documents to go with the agenda. One is the executive summary, in which we have just the summary data for the 2017 and 2050, as well as the methodology statement. And then we have a full report in which we have everything which is in the executive summary, but we have the localities as well. So we have locality map. In some cases, those are segment maps because all TAZ won't fit into one page, and then all the TAZ level data. But this time around, since we have a data team at Plan RVA now, we developed what is called as the Socioeconomic Data Hub, which is more interactive than the document. And I'll just give you a little tour of that. So if you click the link, there is this data hub, and it has the 4 components. So it has the executive summary. If you click into the executive summary, it opens. You can read here, or you can open it as a PDF, and you can also save it. So as I said, the executive summary has obviously the TPO policy board members, the socioeconomic data group, project staff, and then we have the introduction for the project, the summary for 2017 and 2050, and the basic methodology statement. If you click here in the 4 squares, it goes back to the hub. And similarly, we have the full report And then we have a story map for the socioeconomic data, which was developed by the data team. So we have the purpose, we have the summary table for the base year and the future year. If you click it, you can see a bigger view of that. And then below, you can explore the data. It's taking a while to load, but you can, yeah, it's taking a while to load. But you will see the reason with TAZs, and if you zoom in, you'll see the TAZs number, and if you click at the table, it will show that TAZ number here so that you can interactively view all the data. It has all the data which is in the report. And then we have some insights. Yeah, it's taking time to load. I apologize for that. And it gives you some insight like how the population would be distributed, which TAZs experienced most growth, which TAZs experienced highest growth, and things like that. And then you can explore the dashboard, which I'm going to go back, and then also download the executive summary as well as the full report from this. And then we also have a socioeconomic dashboard, which is basically only provides you the population and employment for all the TAZs, and you can select it by TAZ or filter it by localities. So it'll give you 4 things. It'll give you the 2017 population, the 2050 population, the population differences, the exact number, as well as the difference percentage. Same thing with population. You can select by localities, or you can select by filter by TAZs as well. So yeah, this is the first time we have done this. So I hope this is helpful for everybody. The link is in the document itself, and we would like the TAC to review it and provide any comments so that we can make it better for your experience. The next thing, this is the data, overall data which we developed, which I'm going to ask you for your approval. So it has the population, the total population, the population in group quarters. After subtracting the population group quarters, we have the population households. Then we have housing units, which is all units. And then we have occupied housing units, which is housing units minus vacant units. We have the autos, we have school enrollment, K-12 colleges, and then we have the total employment, total retail and non-retail. We actually have employment by 20 different categories, but we don't publish that in the report. It was provided to the localities. So we have the 20 different NICS categories, and 3 of those categories are aggregated to get retail, and the other 17 are aggregated to get non-retail. So we have that as well. Sorry, so before I ask for your approval, I just wanted to say that predicting the future is not easy. But based on the best data we have and the best resources and the best people from the localities who were able to look at this data, I think we could have done the best. But again, there's a disclaimer that it's not easy, and it could go either way. So having said that, I'm asking the TAC for the approval of the 2050 future year data. The socioeconomic data recommended that the TAC approves this data. Staff concurs with the SE data work group recommendation. So the following resolution is presented that it's basically that TAC approves the future year data at all levels, which is the traffic. The first one is the traffic analysis zones, TAZ, jurisdictional level and regional level, and recommend RRTPO policy board to approve the data as it is presented by RRTPO staff. And that's all I have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer it now.
Yes, thank you, Sulabh. The work group has put a lot into this, and I see Ms. Inman has her hand raised. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say thank you, Sulabh. This is really great. I'm very impressed by that interactive tool. So I know there was a lot of work that went into this, so I just want to say, thank you and kudos to you and everybody that worked on it.
Thank you.
And I see something in the chat also. Sulab just says, yes, great job. That was a big undertaking by the work group and yourself. So thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, would anyone like to make a motion to approve the 2050 future year data at the traffic analysis zone, jurisdictional and regional levels, and recommends RRTPO policy board to approve the data as it is presented by RRTPO staff? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Sorry, I think I heard Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Inman. Can I, Amy, would you mind seconding and
Fine.
Mr. Mitchell? Okay. Ms. Firestone, does that work for you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, take a roll call. Thank you.
Ms. Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Vidunez,
Aye.
Chair Smidler,
Aye.
Ms. Inman,
Aye.
Ms. Clark, Ms. Clark,
Aye.
Ms. Javinsky,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Mr. Parsons,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
and Ms. Rhodes.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the amended agenda is the revised number 9 regarding the UPWP. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to turn this on. Okay, so we are asking today, and as we discussed when the agenda was amended, there's also a staff report that is linked on the meetings page. There is a presentation and then a staff report, but the presentation reviews what's in the staff report. But in case anybody wants to read the full thing, it is there. So we are asking for an amendment to the current fiscal year 2023 UPWP. And just as a quick review, the UPWP is required and addresses federal and state planning and programming requirements so that we can remain eligible for federal aid, highway, and transit funds. We have 4 core program areas in the existing UPWP: program support and administration, general development, comprehensive planning that also includes public engagement and equity analysis, long-range transportation planning, kind of the vision planning components of what we do, and then short-range transportation planning. So the TIP, RSTP CMAQ funding, performance-based planning, and freight. We have seen some, as generally happens during the year, we've seen some changes as the time has gone by in FY23 to some of the work that staff has had to focus on. So we are asking for some slight administrative adjustments of the breakdowns between tasks in the current work program. 2 main areas, which are on the screen now. We would like to adjust upward the long-range transportation plan 7310 funding to cover the additional staff time that was put into the SE data and the reporting and data tools that you just heard about. And we would like to move $25,000 from our contingency line item 7230 to 7310 to cover that additional staff time. The other item is to shift some funds from contingency to program management 7110 to cover additional staff time committed to developing the transportation forum and the upcoming joint annual meeting June 1st. And the amount there is also $25,000. So if we look at the existing funding. The changes are reflected in the highlighted cells in the table shown here. And this shows the shift of $25,000 each way from contingency to 7110 and 7310. And it still has a remainder of just under 35,000 in contingency in case there are any additional items that need to be addressed between now and the end of June. And slight adjustments in how the funds, if this change is approved, how the distribution would be shown across the 4 areas. We do see a slight decrease in 7,200, the gray pie piece, and the corresponding increase in the long-range transportation planning, the 7,300, because we currently show the contingency work task under 7,200. So that just reflects the moving out of $50,000 total from that line item to the other 2. With that, the recommendation or the requested action is a recommendation to the policy board that the RRTPO approves the amendments to the current fiscal year 2023 Unified Planning Work Program as presented, and further resolve that the TAC action to amend the UPWP as submitted meets all requirements noted in VDOT RRPDC agreement for the utilization of federal and state funds to support metropolitan planning in the Richmond area as provided in Article 3 Statement of Work, which includes VDOT and FHWA approval of this RRTPO action and amending the FY23 UPWP. Madam Chair, that's a quick run through. I'd be happy to take any questions. I apologize for the late notice about this.
I just had a question. I know it was something was presented at the TPO regarding the UPWP. Is this an amendment to that, or could you?
No, thank you. Yeah, to clarify that the TPO at its last meeting approved the FY24 UPWP, so the one that's going to start July 1. This is an amendment to the existing one we're operating under right now.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions for Mr. Parsons? Is there a motion?
So moved, Barb.
Is there a second?
John O'Keefe, I'll second.
Thank you. Ms. Firestone, would you please take a roll call vote?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Miss Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Gloin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Vadunez,
Aye.
Chair Smidler,
Aye.
Miss Inman,
Aye.
Miss Clark,
Aye.
Miss Jubinsky,
Aye.
Miss Robinson, Miss Robinson? Do we have Mr. Robinson from GRTC?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Aye.
great. Mr. Parsons,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
Miss Rhodes.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the GRTC fiscal year 24 Regional Public Transportation Plan. This is a discussion item. We're going to be reviewing the fiscal year 24 priorities. Ms. Torres?
Good morning. Yes, this is going to be a discussion. The plan is not finalized, but want to get kind of feedback on some of the priorities we went through, give you an update on some of the things we've already gone through for studies as far as funding and next steps. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, it doesn't want to show me anything. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so this is very similar to all the previous years as far as what the focus area priorities are for FY24. The majority of the funds we have prioritized, of course, to just make sure we are keeping service as usual, so stability and maintenance of transit operations, looking at a minimum of keeping service as we are today. But of course, that is a reduced version of what we had pre-pandemic. So the prioritization, all of this dependent on operators, which we are aggressively trying to retrain and recruit, but bringing those back to pre-pandemic levels. Next is a match requirement for capital. So 2% of the total match, as we're looking at, to maintain state of good repair and provide targeted rider and business efficiencies improvements. Prepare for expansion initiatives, and I'll get into the ones we have prioritized for 24. And then just to continue our efforts for planning and collaboration with the region for both operational and capital needs. All right, so as far as the maintenance of transit operations, we're looking at about 23 million of the CVTA funds to support our current operations and put back service on our Route 5, the Pulse, and the 4A, 4B. The 5 was designed to be 15-minute service, and that's when we had to majorly reduce down to 30 minutes right now. And the Pulse does not have its midday service at the 10-minute frequency because of operators, as well as weekend service has had a significant impact. And our routes 4A and 4B used to be 15 minutes at peak and 30 minutes off peak. And they're actually at 60 minutes all day, which has a big impact to our Montrose and Fulton area. So those are the routes that actually, in terms of Title VI analysis, have also been kind of flagged for being returned for equity purposes. So high priority for those. As far as capital local match, we're looking at about $500,000 to match our current proposed for $22 million of projects for FY24. And then that's just the whole breakdown of the various matches needed. Next, this is the list that we have created and has existed since we actually had the first regional public transportation plan done. And the list continues on where we kind of just updated the potential years of starting. So this is what it looked like last year. So not going to happen this year, knowing that fiscal year 23 is coming to a close, but on the list was the extension of our Route 19 that currently goes to kind of Bon Secours Parkway out in Short Pump, but doing a small extension to Sheltering Arms in Goochland. That one stays on the list. Now you'll see that the kind of 3 identified for FY24, the Route 60, which is our 1A, extending that down to Walmart Way on Midlothian Turnpike. Chesterfield actually applied for a demo grant and was awarded that through DRPT. The goal is to get that one implemented by this fall or winter. So again, nothing has been identified specifically for CVTA funds. Once we've identified kind of what would be put in for expansion, and if there's not any other funding source to identify, then we would adjust for those purposes. The Route 3B, which was formerly the 111, will be extended if once Colebrook comes online from Bright Point, which is the end of the line today, a little bit further down to extend that route. And another prioritization is extension of the Route 1 further up Brook and Parham. The current end of the line of that route is Chamberlain and Wilmer in Henrico County. So as far as the others, I do want to go through with everyone for the future ones, just so we can kind of update the years, just kind of more of the discussion item. So the extend Route 1 to Green Cities, Virginia Center Commons area is currently listed as FY25. I guess Henrico, if you guys have any comment on the current year for that, if that still seems not supposed to align with the development out there, if FY25 still seems like the right time frame.
Yes, it does.
Okay, great. Jerona, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Just a quick question about these expansion priorities. I know when we were doing them, and I just can't recall, but did we have public input on these priorities?
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank to the.
I know for myself, I guess it was like
Yeah.
2.5 years ago, but I just don't remember. And so I just wanted to kind of make sure that we have, I don't know, do we need to have any? But I mean.
Yeah. Well, so the ones that are prioritized this year would go into, we would do our own public outreach just for those expansion efforts. I have at the end, but we're actually currently, we started our transit strategic plan last month. And so all of this, when you'll see where I only have a recommendation to spend 50,000 on the plan next year, because we're rolling this into that effort and combining the funds. So that will be the full public outreach that will get feedback on that. So we will be okay. Knowing that, because I can't recall. It technically, I guess these meetings do count to some extent. But yeah, and it wasn't a full effort to get complete feedback.
Yeah, but you said it will be with like the.
It will be in the
plan.
TSB.
Yeah,
absolutely.
perfect. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, the next one, Dorona, the increased route 5 to 10-minute frequencies, knowing of course it's 30 minutes now, so we got to get to 15. But 2 years out, if that does happen, does that still remain kind of a priority? And that's that VCU, Mosby, Carytown route. Okay, we'll leave that on there. Identified on here next is, so through the I-64 project, we identified, I'm kind of just going to cover them all at the same time, but some I-64 funds, which are actually 3 years worth of funds for increased frequency on the 7s, so increasing those to 15 minutes. Next one is increasing the route 19 to 20 minutes, and then adding an express route to short pump. I know the first two, Sharon, the 7s and the 19 still kind of remain, I mean, these are in out years, but priority for FY25. Granted, we are at a good place at that point in time, but are those still looking like okay years as we get down there?
Yes, yes, they may be able to go a little bit further out, but that should be fine.
Okay. So you've had conversations with Enrico as well as with DRPT about that express route to short pump, knowing that our setup for express routes after the impacts of the pandemic, just a little bit different in structure. We don't have as many as we did before. So when that was put in back in, I don't know, was that 20? It's from the TDP, these projects. So it was back in 2018, we put that in. It's just different. So we're exploring if that could be used for a little bit for another purpose. I know DRPT is exploring that as well, knowing those funds were listed if there's a possible shift in scope with that. Amy, you had a question?
Yeah, so are the 64 funds, are those related to the widening project for transportation management?
It is, can someone, I guess, explain the 64 funds?
I can take a try at that. So no, this is not related. So when VDOT did all the studies on the major highways, so 64, 81, 95, they had programmed a constraint list that was approved by CTB for primarily projects of this nature. So there's a mix of a highway as well as transit. So this is related to, it's like the IOEP funds. And so this will be for 64 in this case. So it's not related to the widening.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Great. I don't have a specific update on those, just that we will probably continue to discuss maybe the express route short pump and maybe a rescoping for that particular project if it's possible. All right. Next one, I'm going to actually jump down to Chesterfield. In conversations updated with Barb, we are looking more at a study kind of in the earlier phases for these projects. And as we pilot, which I'll get into next, the microtransit zones, kind of looking at if that would also potentially be a model as these particular areas come online for some sort of transit need, looking at the microtransit as an alternative to a fixed route. So some of the ones in the outer years that are in Chesterfield, those have kind of been the conversations for those. Is that fair, Barb?
Yeah, and we did just apply for a raised planning grant for Hopkins and included microtransit feasibility in that.
All right, back to Henrico, and these are pretty far out, Sharon, but doing the interlining and increased frequency for Henrico on the 18 and 79. So making those routes actually work together, which would increase the frequency. And then at some point, these are not on the weekend service, but doing weekend service for those routes as well.
Yeah, I agree.
As far as fixed route, any others that people have in mind, and even some of the, like Amy, I know Express Route is one that New Kent has interest in.
Yeah, and I think we're talking a little bit later, so I'd like to chat about that
Okay,
when we talk later.
that sounds good. Any others that are on this list of people already kind of have in the works? And I mean, and the plan is for FY24, just putting together a comprehensive list. And then of course, like I said, the transit strategic plan will work with the jurisdictions to kind of evaluate the current need within the region and determine other things on the list, but just to kind of react right now. Okay, I will move on. All right, and I realize I am not in presentation mode, so I apologize for that. Can you still see it as normal presentation?
I see the notes or like the next slide, right?
I know I can switch. All right, let's just go back to how it looks. Sorry, I'm just gonna leave it like this. Okay. So microtransit, this is an update. A lot of you we have been working with, I mean, since probably the last 2 years, but even more intensely as we've now identified the top 5 zones. So update, we started with 30, narrowed it to 10, and the top zones are the Powhatan zone, the Ashland zone, the Washington Park Azalea zone, Sandston Echo, and then the North Chesterfield West zone. So these are the profiles for them. What we're doing now, and I'm just gonna kind of jump further, but we are working on refining the zones with all the jurisdictions, knowing that we had kind of did data analysis, we met with everyone, but want to make sure the boundaries are what we want when we start. So we had a meeting with some individuals, and Amy mentioned a meeting later. That one is referring to meeting again to go over that zone. At the same time, we are working in parallel on a communication plan. They're in discovery right now, but it will end up with a marketing toolkit that will be basically created to match the need for the jurisdiction. So it'll be a full amount, but for example, let's say one particular demographic might utilize better kind of paper versions versus like social media versions of marketing efforts. And we are also working on branding of what it'll have a similar look to GRTC to know it's GRTC, but will have its own name. So that effort is going on now. We plan on wrapping the vehicles. As far as operation of it, I have refined operational and capital costs that will come out of the zone refinement, but also will come out of looking at how to operate these. Originally, the consultants had recommended doing a third party for kind of the more rural ones and operating an internal for GRTC with the ones that are already in our network. As we work through that, it seems like it's making more sense to start off with a third party operation across the board. And then as we build up in-house, switching to management over the next year of the zones that are in our network. So starting with a third party. So that will be kind of that'll be the procurement support that we'll need. And then the goal for implementation is to get the first one launched in this fall, and then kind of do a phased approach of all of them in all 5 by spring 2024.
Ms. Clark, did you have a question about one of these slides?
I did. Thank you, Madam Chair. Adrian, what was I going to say? Of the 30 zones that were identified, will there be somewhat like we're doing, like the slide before with the table where you kind of have the fiscal year? Is there a way that we can kind of begin to see further or look at the microtransit holistically and then in a way where we're planning for them in the future too. Of course, I know the importance of these microtransit zones for all the outlier areas, but there are some needs within Richmond that would benefit from microtransit. And so I just want to, just make sure that, the 30 just aren't dropped off, but we do have some long-term plan of maybe addressing those over time.
Yes, so part of the request is going to be, like I mentioned, we're doing the TSP. So I have part of the scope for them is actually don't look at it as traditional fixed route, but go ahead and look at how we can basically, you and I have had conversations as far as like certain areas where there might be lower routes today, or maybe in the evenings, complement that with a micro transit. How can we utilize that sort of service to make us more efficient? In addition to that, that covers a little bit of the city, but in addition to that, even after I did the zone presentation for the pilot, people came up to me after CVTA, they're like, we want ours next. So not forgotten. So I do want to kick off, let's get the current study for implementation, a decent amount under the way, and then let's jump right into the next zone. So yeah, a table like you presented would be great, but let's do the background to be able to get us there. And then we come with a phased approach of putting them in. Because I mean, microtransit for those, particularly for the region, is probably going to be what works for a lot of those zones. Fixed route probably won't be there for years to come. So yes, that has been identified as one of the funding requests.
Thank you.
And there is a question in the chat from Ms. Russell. What is the time frame for launch of microtransit using a third party like Bay Transit in rural areas?
For the ones that are in the pilot zone, like the new Kent that goes over to the Sandston Echo one, and the Ashland and the Powhatan one, the goal is to get those in between winter and spring of this coming year. And they would be third party. Now, as far as Bay Transit, we have included them in conversations, and we'll continue to do that. I think there is a great way to complement each other with service. In talking to them, they even said as far as their service could work, because there is an overlap, bring people to the zone within the Sandston Echo area. And then the Sandston Echo area actually has a local route connection to it. So it could make it all the way to the city, which is a pretty big regional effort. As far as the other zones, like the question that Dorona just asked, we could work on that and it still would be third party, but prioritizing those in the out years. I hope they answered your question.
Ms. Russell had asked some other questions. And maybe she had asked about planning progress since our last meeting, or maybe there could be maybe you guys could coordinate offline about another, trying to get some of the questions answered. But she had asked if there's any planning progress since our last meeting, and I'm not sure if she's referring to which meeting, but
yeah, we met with her and Bay Transit. But yeah, I'm happy to set up another meeting, Ms. Russell, so we can continue the conversation. Is that okay? I can't, for some reason, I can't see it. I see it.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan to me. I see she's posting in the chat. But,
okay. All right, just the last slide just kind of just gives a summary. So the 23 million to support our current operations.
I'm sorry, I had to unmute myself. Can you hear me?
It's not very well. It's very slow and kind of drawn out. It's difficult to hear you. And I see your hands raised. We can try a second time, and then maybe it's just setting up a separate meeting with Ms. Torres, GRTC, to talk about it. But you go ahead if you want to try a second time.
You talk Are you?
No, it's really difficult to hear you. Would you, Rhonda, would you reach out to Adrian and set up a meeting?
Yeah, I can reach out to her and set something up.
Okay, thank you, Adrian.
Yeah. So just a quick summary of the kind of the budgetary request is the 23 million for supporting operations, about 500 for the 2% match for our capital grants. 50,000 for the next, let's say FY25, sorry, regional public transportation plan. And then the phase 3 is what I'm calling it for support for the future phases of microtransit. So the 23.7, and we're looking at accrual this year. So GRTC uses the funding from the year before just to make sure the money is there to support the next year. So we'll use the money that we accrued for 2023 to support 2024. So we're looking at about 33.1 million. So the rolling reserve, we would be putting about 9 million into that. I don't know if you remember, but last year we put 5 million in. So this money is being held for expansion purposes. And just to kind of go over what the list we went up above, knowing that some of those do have some other funding sources for a finite amount of time. But if you did add up all of that, it is $19 million worth of prioritization for funding, requesting for 1 year. So even though we have 5 and 9, we're still going to have to do a lot of work to kind of prioritize even among that list what we want to put forward and when, and maybe do some other leveraging. So we'll work together as we get there, but just want to put those numbers out there. But we are putting in a reserve for that purpose. All right, so as far as next steps, based on this, just we'll refine the numbers. We are proposing our operating capital budget to our board. So it'll go to Finance Committee on Thursday, actually. Our board meeting is this coming Tuesday on the 18th. And once all of this makes it through there, then we will be taking it to CBTA. That was supposed to be May, but there is no May meeting. So going to try and pull it off by April. Not sure if that's possible because I do want to take it to Finance Committee. So it might be June, but we'll work on with Chet on those kind of meeting requests. Any other conversation or discussion? All right, thank you, everyone. You're muted, Sharon.
Oops, sorry about that. Just saying thank you and appreciate the conversation. And if you could reach out to Rhonda Russell's Charles City, that would be appreciated.
Yes.
Thank you, Adrian. Let's see, next up on the agenda is fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 24 TIP amendments, highway maintenance groupings. This is an action item. And Mr. Parsons, my understanding is you'll be presenting.
Yes, thank you very much. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is, as you said, an action item regarding FY21 to 24 TIP amendments and specific to maintenance groupings. Okay, so VDOT has submitted 3 requests for amendments. The request is to amend the summary table for 3 maintenance groupings. And through this amendment, there will be an increase in total cost, new STBG, NHFP, and NHPP funds. The amendments require fiscal constraint, public review, TAC review, which is today, and then policy board approval ultimately. The first, preventative maintenance and system preservation, it's a change in obligations in FY23. And you see the 3 different categories on the screen. The total cost is $161.5 million. Preventative maintenance for bridges is the second of 3, and a change in obligations there in FY23, total cost of $114.7 million. And then traffic and safety operations is the last. Again, a change in obligations in FY23. Total cost is $24.6 million. There's a 15-day public comment period required, and it will be held between April 19th and May 3rd. And the amendments will be posted on the Plan RVA website for review and comment as well. And then that timing will allow for a policy board review and action. The action requested today is a recommendation from the TAC on the following resolution. Resolved that the Richmond Regional TPO approves the following amendments to the FY21 to 24 Transportation Improvement Program. Maintenance, preventative maintenance and system preservation, add 115,430 in NHFP in fiscal year 23. Add 2,258,586 in NHPP in federal fiscal year 23, and add 31,116,665 in STBG STP in federal fiscal year 23. In maintenance and preventative maintenance for bridges, add 751,472 in NHFP in federal fiscal year 23, 2,102,357 in NHPP in federal fiscal year 23, and 6,926,117 in STBG STP in federal fiscal year 23. And then finally, traffic and safety operations, add an additional 6,405,707 in STP STBG in federal fiscal year 23. That is the request for TAC consideration today regarding the grouping adjustments.
I move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Firestone, could we take a roll call vote rather?
Yes, I'm sorry. Was that Mr. Vadunez and Mr. Mitchell with the motion and the second?
Yes.
All right. Miss Amos,
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell,
Aye.
Miss Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Goyne,
Aye.
Vice Chair Vadunez,
Aye.
Chair Smidler,
Aye.
Miss Inman,
Aye.
Miss Clark,
Aye.
Miss Jubinsky,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson, Miss Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Parsons,
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe,
Aye.
and Miss Rhodes.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the TIP illustrative project list. It's an information item. Mr. Parsons.
Thank you very much. I refer you to the screen as well. This is a new consideration for the TIP in our region, but it's based on the following things. Locality staff have, especially with the passing of the bipartisan infrastructure law, but specifically to raise grants and other types of applications about candidate projects and whether they are included in the TIP. Sometimes these projects that are the subject of the grant applications are not yet because funding has not been specified. But the RRTPO has traditionally prepared letters of endorsement for these types of discretionary grant applications. We have worked with primarily Mr. Bushing has worked with VDOT to identify alternatives to strengthen regional applications and streamline the process. Federal law does allow the TIP to include a vision list, and this is something that kind of mirrors the vision list that is in the long range transportation plan. And it would basically be a list of projects that would be included in the TIP if additional funds were available. These projects in the illustrative project list can be revised administratively since they aren't part of the constrained TIP. This will be a third set of projects after the ungrouped and grouped categories. And it would serve as a standing endorsement for grant applications and other opportunities that might pop up from time to time. The key requirements that staff has identified is that the projects need to be in or consistent with the long-range plan, that the sponsor needs to provide enough detail to create a project sheet other than funding resources. The total cost may be a range to reflect uncertainty in the start year. And then the project should be seeking funding within the TIP timeframe. And it would still require an amendment to add to the constrained plan if it is successful. The next steps, as long as TAC is on board with this, is the staff will develop the illustrative list, a draft illustrative list based on previous TPO endorsements. And we'll obviously follow up with each of you as needed for additional details and necessary information. The end game is that we come up with more resources to support the actions that our members are currently undergoing, and with the horizon of additional grant opportunities and other federal funding that is being made available, seems like on a quarterly basis now. We think that this is something that can prove to be helpful as we continue to seek outside funding for moving our region forward.
Ms. Clark?
Yep, I just have a quick question. I'm just trying to make sure, how does this align or work with the long-range transportation plan? Is that, when you have this illustrative list, and then, do you mind just telling me how that works?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's really it would have to do with the timeframes. The LRTP is looking out to right now to 2045, whereas the TIP would not be that advanced.
Okay.
It's really it's a similar type of mechanism, but it's different horizon years.
Just to follow that. Yeah, I understand that, but so we plan and say this is what we want long term, and then we just somewhat arbitrarily come up with something that's short term. Does something that has to be on the illustrative list also need to be in the long range transportation plan?
Yes, it has to be consistent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Rhodes?
Yeah, I just wanted to draw everybody's attention to the link that's in the memo regarding this agenda item. VDOT also has a form for submitting these kind of requests and getting resources, and that was provided to you all in your packet.
It's hard to hear you, Sarah.
How
I
about
heard
now?
about a memo in the packet, but
How about now?
I can hear you better now.
Okay. Yes, there's a link in the packet about a request form that VDOT has set up related to this particular issue. I just wanted to draw your all attention to it.
Yes, page 94 in the packet, if everyone needed to see that.
And I see Miles put something in the chat as well. All right. So if there are no other questions, we will move on to the next item, which is Transportation Agency Updates, DRPT. Ms. Dubinsky just had to hop off. I don't think there's anybody else on from DRPT. Yeah, I don't see Mr. Wagner. So let's go to GRTC. Ms. Robinson.
Thank you. Yeah. So coming up for GRTC, we have the Downtown Transfer Station, DTS, if you love a good acronym, is opening May 21st with our newest booking service. So this will give riders an easier way to make transfers between buses throughout the day, not just evenings and weekends like the current transfer plaza. GRTC also has a multi-year contract with Connect Point Digital for e-signage. It's going to be piloted with the DTS launch. They're e-readers, black and white, very similar to like a Kindle kind of screen, but they're solar powered and can be updated from us. So it'll be quick and easy information to get out. And if the pilot goes well, we're going to put them out at local stops over the next 5 years. GRTC's onboard survey as part of our TSP starts at the end of this month. So you'll see people as soon as the 25th riding out on buses and getting surveys. This will be on buses, at transfer points, and at local stops. And so that information is going to be to guide our strategic planning. Let's see, North-South BRT study continues. We have public engagement meetings for both north and south of the river this spring and summer to gather feedback from the community and potential BRT alignments that would bring the second line and build out the Pulse network. And I think Adrian kind of covered a little bit earlier as far as the next board meeting. So I think that is it for GRTC.
Thank you. Next up is any questions for GRTC? Hearing none, Ride Finders is next. Mr. O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ride Finders was, we presented our services and programs to the Chesterfield County Chamber of Commerce Nonprofit Committee via Zoom. We're also continuing to work with VDOT on the replacement of our 6 missing signs. In a recent conversation with VDOT, all of them but 2 have been replaced. They're just waiting for 2 more of the sign panels. So you'll see some of those updated logos and everything along a lot of the interstates is where those were missing. Also on March 9th, Ride Finders held a look at our micro transit pilot program here in conjunction with the Association for Commuter Transportation Chesapeake chapter. We had representatives from GRTC come and talk about the micro transit project. And we also had the city of Richmond, discuss some of the micro project as well. Diana was there and a lot of her staff was there. The meeting was very well attended. We had 30+ people in our conference room. And then afterwards, many of them went out and rode the Pulse. And we had people from this meeting from as far away as Baltimore, Maryland, and Virginia Tech and the Roanoke Valley region. So a very well attended meeting there. We were happy to host that. We also created and developed the March Made Challenge, which was a 2-week carpool and vanpool challenge that coincided with the basketball's March Madness to celebrate carpoolers and vanpoolers and encouraging them to ride their to share their trips. We shared the results of the 2nd annual Caring Commutes Challenge from February that encouraged commuters to show their love environment by logging their green commuter trips on social media platforms. The challenge resulted in over 45,000 reduced vehicle miles traveled, 826 transit trips were recorded, 178 vanpool trips were recorded, and 106 bike trips were recorded. We also forwarded our CAP 5-year strategic program and timeline to GRTC's Transportation Strategic Plan Program and to the Ride Finders Advisory Board for review, as well as this was for an information item. And lastly, many of you on the TAC will receive an email or a letter from Ride Finders, just kind of letting you know about our availability and services. So if there's any businesses in y'all's area that you could use, any Ride Finder services. I know we've met with Barb a while back. We were talking with some businesses, but anything we can do to help with outreach or any carpools, vanpools, or any other TDM things, we'd be glad to help. And with that, ma'am, that's the end of my update, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the update. I just received my letter or email from Ride Finders, so I'll be sure to share that with our Economic Development Authority and others. Any questions for Mr. O'Keefe?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is VDOT, Ms. Mueller.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. I have a few things I want to highlight this morning. As you are all aware, the development of the FY24 through 29 6-year improvement program is underway. The Richmond District Public Meeting is scheduled for Monday, April the 24th. We'll start at 4 p.m. At the district in South Chesterfield. Formal public comment on the projects proposed to be included in the SYIP will be accepted at the meeting. Written comments may also be submitted during the meeting, or they may be mailed, emailed, or submitted through the online form until May the 24th. I checked this morning, the materials are not on the CTB website yet, so keep checking the link in my update. Janice will put the update on the TPO agenda webpage so you can access all of the links in the report. I have a quick update on the Fall Line Trail, the design build package 1, which includes the segment from the town of Ashland city limits down towards the Henrico County line. As you know, was advertised in December. We did receive favorable bids last month, and we intend to move forward with awarding the contract this spring. Construction is on schedule and should begin later this summer on that segment. We're also continuing to work on design build package 2, which is at the southern end in Chesterfield County. Our survey work and initial engineering work is underway. We expect to have the advertisement for the request for proposals in late 2023. And I have added a new item to my monthly update for you, the I-64 gap widening. The design public hearing took place last December. VDOT will release a request for proposals for segment A this spring, and the design build contract is expected to be awarded in the fall of 2023. An estimated completion of this section is winter of 2026-27. And that's my report, Madam Chair. We're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for VDOT?
Hi, Sharon. I do have a question for
Go ahead,
Nicole.
Joe.
Hi, Nicole. Can you circle back to your update on that first section of Fall Line Trail?
Sure.
Just some clarification. You mentioned construction beginning later this summer.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's design build, and currently I think the plans are roughly at 30%. So I don't really, I may not understand how design build works, but it seems to me that there's probably significant design work and right-of-way acquisition that has to take place before construction begins. How is that? Do you have that information?
I can get that information for you in detail. Sarah, do you know where we're at exactly with this?
No, I can't provide any additional information, but we'll get that to you, Joe.
Yep, for sure.
Thank you.
All right. So that is it for the agency updates. Next on the agenda, I think, was the next meeting topics. If there's anything else you'd like to see other than what's listed in the agenda, please let me, Chet, or Janice know. And the number 14 or 15 on the agenda is TAC member comments. Any comments from TAC members? Hearing none. The next meeting is a special meeting scheduled for April 26th at 9 a.m. Mr. Parsons, I guess we should get in the agenda at least a week before, so have time to review it, or could you give maybe a sentence or two update about what the special meeting is about?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, the intent is we plan the special meeting so that you would have information well in advance. The topics will be allocations, STB, GCMAC, and I'm drawing a blank. Mr. Bushing, what's the other topic? Oh, the tip. Yes, obviously the tip, the updated tip. So that is currently under public review. That will close, I believe, in the next couple of days, and that will be an action item for you to consider. A recommendation of the FY 24 to 27 tip to the policy board.
Thank you. Ms. Clark?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Just quickly, what was the date on that again? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, April 26th. I'm trying to remember what day of the week that is, Wednesday. At 9 a.m.
Yeah, I don't think I can make that, but I don't have it on my calendar either. So I don't know if it was sent out.
I don't have it on my calendar either. I know Chet had sent me an email, but I did not.
Yes, I don't have a meeting invite either. And will we continue with the May 9th regularly scheduled TAC meeting?
That is my
Yes.
understanding, yes.
Okay. So can we anticipate a meeting invite for April 26th?
Yes. Yes, we were waiting to have it announced at this meeting before we made any changes to the
Gotcha.
official Outlook invitations.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, all good points. Thank you. So it is 10:22. This meeting is considered adjourned. Hope everyone has a nice day, and I'll see you later in April. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.